Hi guys, it's April. When I wasn't looking, January ended, and I have yet to get my January wrap up, so that is what this is. As always, I've broken up the month into two different sections, so I will link the first half of the month review up there and somewhere down below, so you can check out the first 2 weeks of reading for 2017 in case you're interested in my thoughts on what I read. But now, I will first wrap up the month of January, which has been extremely hectic in a way I didn't really anticipate. I actually finally finished up the YA Booktube Awards. I did a couple live shows. I will link both of them down below. And we wrapped up the giveaway that I was helping with that. That was the first time I've ever done a giveaway, and it was interesting to say the least. I've got several more collaborations coming along in February and March, so look for those because it's gonna be an interesting year, guys. And of course, in January, I hit my 2-year anniversary. I've been on BookTube for 2 stinking years. Who would have thought? Not me, but I'm really glad that I have because you guys are absolutely amazing, and I don't know what I'd be doing with my time if I wasn't doing this. Probably reading more books, but that's beside the point. So now that I have wrapped up my activities for January, we will now get into the reading that I did in this last half of January. I've already done a review over The Magic Bottle by Camille Garcia. This was a beautifully illustrated storybook. I really love the illustration style of Camille, so I had to pick this up when I finally got my hands on it. The story is about Lulu and how she sees the world falling apart, and she comes across this magic bottle which might help her in some of these destructive tendencies that she sees. It was cute. I liked it. I probably enjoyed the illustrations more than I did the story, but sometimes that's all I want. Then I picked up book 2 in the Nola Mysteries by Joy Castro. This is Nearer Home. In this story, Nola, who is a reporter in New Orleans, finds more death and destruction in her beloved city, and this time the murder is of someone she used to know. So she decides to dig deeper into this story and realizes that there might be some serious corruption in her city, and this is her story as she becomes possibly the next target. It was a good read. Overall, I wasn't really that fascinated with it. It didn't hold me as much as the first book in this series. I wanted more from it. It was the stereotypical mystery novel where the reporter is digging up the information just set in New Orleans. So it wasn't bad, but overall I couldn't really tell you much about the story now that it's been 3 weeks. I also finally finished my buddy read with Shala, which is Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oates. Shala finished this way before I did. I have been failing in buddy reads, unfortunately. I will link Shayla's information down below because you need to check out, especially her Instagram, but you need to check her out, all of that stuff, because she is a sweetheart. But anyways, back to this book. This is the story of Dina. Dina is going to be the next Queen of Hearts, but she is still trying to vie for her father's affection. She can't understand why her father is so cruel to her. And then one day, out of the blue, her father brings one of his other children from another woman into their lives and creates this slightly competition-esque reality between the two girls, and Dina is just trying to deal with what being the Queen of Hearts may make her and this underlying issue that is going on with the kingdom and how the king is ruling the realm. This is the first book in a series. It can go some pretty interesting places. I wasn't overwhelmed by this story itself, but I can see the potential of where it could go, so I might pick up the next book in the series. I don't know. I'm still debating. I finished a series, guys. I finished the Madman's Daughter series by Megan Shepherd with A Cold Legacy. This is the last book in a trilogy. Duh. It's the last in the series. Yeah. I didn't really think that sentence through. This book in the series is a Frankenstein retelling. All of the other books have taken on a gothic retelling, and this one is Frankenstein. I really love the dark air that each of these books have taken on and the gothic feel, and how somewhat true they have stayed to each of the gothic stories that they have tried to embody. In this story, Juliet is on her way out of the city, trying to escape people who are trying to find her, and you've got the Frankenstein elements that sneak into the story. There, of course, is the love triangle within the series that I just didn't really feel at all, ever. But for me, it was the gothic story inside of this series that really pulled me along. And I just read it for that. For that alone, I loved it, but for everything else, I was underwhelmed. I think it was just a really underwhelming last half of this month, and that just kind of snowballed. And then there was I Am Princess X by Sherry Priest. If ever there was a story that was written just for me, it was probably this story right here. This is the story of May, who with her best friend Libby has created this character called Princess X. Libby draws the character, May writes the story, and then one day Libby goes missing. 3 years later, May is still convinced that Libby is alive somewhere, and then she starts seeing this Princess X pop up everywhere. So she tries to follow the clues, hoping that it will lead her back to her best friend. The nerdiness and the geekiness and the wonderfulness of this book just, I love it so much. It's one of those books I now have to add to my shelf. I could tell you where the story was going, but I just love how May followed the comic elements inside of Princess X to put this mystery together, and it was wonderful, and my little heart really, really, truly enjoyed this story. If you like things like comic books and just all out being a weirdo with fandoms and things like that, check out this story. And finally, I picked up Chloe Diller by Natalie Cuddington. Natalie is a YouTuber. I will link to her channel down below. I'm not one for contemporary stories. A lot of times I can't get into them. There's something about a contemporary story. I'm always looking for this fantastical element, and of course contemporary stories isn't gonna have that. This is real life. This is standard stuff. It's nothing overwhelming. It's contemporary. This is the story of Chloe as she deals with the death of her fiance and how she tries to move on with that and befriends the guy across the hall, Cohen, and what all of this does in the first year trying to get over the death of her fiance. It was a traumatizing story. Of course, you're dealing with death and how people process death, and I do think that aspect was handled fairly well. There were elements in the story that just kind of drove me nuts a little bit. There were parts of Chloe that I really connected with, especially since she was such a voracious reader. She loved reading. So I could see that aspect of Natalie in this story. But then there were parts in the way she interacted with Cohen that I just wanted it to move on. And this is part of the reason why I don't always get along with contemporary reads. People annoy the heck out of me at times, and unfortunately that kind of happened in this book. It seemed a little repetitive, and I just wanted her to move on, but like I said, I've never dealt with grief like she has, so maybe that's a standard thing. I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. It was a very sad read, but there was hope involved, and I did like the bookish elements that were thrown in. So those were all the books that I read in the last half of January. I've already gotten a good start on February, so expect a nice little wrap-up coming soon. Tell me down below what your favorite January read was, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.